Oh, I'm Andrew. Good to see you, bro. Like I say, thanks for coming in. I don't know if you want to just jump right into, if you want to introduce yourself and a little bit of how you got into crypto and stumbled, face first like the rest of us into NFTs.
Yeah, exactly. Got into crypto just doing, not NFTs, but just doing crypto probably 2018-ish when everyone was just losing money doing it. Got into NFTs probably early to mid 2021, kind of as Solana was kind of doing its thing. Got into a bunch of bad buys early and then stumbled into PRMS, which was the early version, what is now Moduluc. Was an early investor into that and then started working with the core team there. The rest is kind of history. A little bit of background on me. I am a cardiologist, still in my scrubs, still at work. Kind of started doing spare time. I'm in the med tech scene down here in Florida. Started there, and then this was kind of just a natural move into NFTs and things like that. I like it, I think I'm going to say.
For sure. So you just you were in the Discord active, and then the community they reached out to you higher up from the community and onboarded you, or how did that transition take place from being an active fan and community member to like, hey, I now work with you guys, and do you want me to go and talk to streamers?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of startup experience, and then a little bit of just management experience just from being in medicine and hospital medicine and things like that. And so some of those skills transferred over directly, and then some of it is also just interest, just being very active in the Discord and things like that. I kind of came at an interesting time where they needed some more, HR and just some management on the project side. And so it was a role that I filled and kind of moved up to head of operations with Moduluc now. But it was just more of utilizing my skill set that I have just from a management standpoint that carried over to Moduluc.
So we first as a community got introduced in the Enviro drop, right, with the tier. So that was where we first got introduced to what was going on over there. That drop, it was. So what happened is, from our perspective, the drop was heavily botted, and so we saw it, and then they dipped in price, and so we were like, oh, well, this is going to come back, okay, because it's just bot activity, right? And so that's where we first were talking about it, and we were getting the buzz of being like, okay, this is an opportunity here because these things are not priced correctly. So that's when we started jumping. I've got 4 or 5 myself like that. So when we get into it, let's just dive right into it. This modular metaverse is essentially a 3 or 4 component part to where you guys are really building out, in-house full NFT experience that if someone comes in, they can just jump right in there.
Yeah, so it's actually a nice timing that we're having this right now, because it was really tough because we couldn't talk about the whole thing even like a week ago, just because we were waiting for the website to come out and all this other stuff. But so basically, Moduluc is creating the entire ecosystem that a metaverse needs, right? So there are specific components. So for example, you can have a room, but to have the assets that you need to put into that room, whether it's furniture, whether it's, it's customizing it the way that you want, whether it's bringing your NFTs in, 3D assets. And then also, if you're going to have other people in that same space, you need some sort of physical representation of that other user in that space. So an avatar, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of components that go into making the space itself. And then that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is what's the output. And so, one of the things, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, but AIrIA is one of the potential outputs. I'm not going to talk about the other ones, but there are more. Moduluc as a whole creates all of these components, right? So the assets, the actual builder, as well as the outputs. So a user can hop into this metaverse like solution, if you want to call it, and get the whole range of things that they need in order to participate in the metaverse. And so that's really the concept of Moduluc.
Is there, and I'm getting like you get the vibe from the website and stuff, there's the user like myself level where I show off my stuff, and then it looks like it's sort of built out to support sort of business B2B infrastructure too, as in like if I come in and I buy a tier 1, that may serve me perfectly. But it looks like you guys are building the sort of infrastructure to where you can scale those services and offer them as the tiered, environments as you can combine those.
Absolutely. And so we do have a individual user standpoint, and I think, for the, the regular user, we will have way more than what they even want. It kind of starts from the regular user, but it also goes to the artist. So you have a way for artists to kind of bring their own work, whether they're digital artists or not, bring their own work to the table, market themselves with professional grade videography and photography tools, and then also on the tail end have auctions or a marketplace or something like that, through AIrIA. So it creates that whole solution for a small business or single person business. But yes, we kind of made it in a way that is scalable for B2B use as well. And so, on the website, we have an enterprise section that kind of alludes to this, but there are a ton of use cases for this. And we kind of have to make it that way because we're creating, the hyper realism market here, and for someone that's just trying to show off like an NFT, like a PFP NFT, they may not need something like this. Granted, it'll make any NFT look good, but for businesses, they need this, right? And so that's kind of where that B2B component kind of comes into play.
For sure, because like even if there's Adidas, right, who are all the way in, and then there's from that all the way in the spectrum to people who are like, what is NFTs, right? Like from corporations, right? And so you're going to see a lot of mid-sized corporations saying, hey, well, why don't, and Enviro is a perfect example of saying, hey, let's put our toe in there, and that can be our Solana, linchpin, obviously, but that leads into the multi-chain aspect of this too. I see you guys building out multi-chain applications so you can onboard other assets and stuff. With that ARIA onboarding of artists, is that going to be more of a selective process, do you feel? Or just like, is that, how Sandbox and, Decentraland is kind of just anyone can do it and let the best sort of flourish? Or is it going to be of a more of a selective, curated collection of opportunities?
Yeah, so up front, this is something we kind of have gone back and forth on with the team, but I think up front is going to be a little bit more selective. I think as the infrastructure solidifies, that may be something that we can loosen up on, but I think upfront it has to be a more selective process because there's a couple of components that go into independent artists bringing a product in. One, it has to be the proper format. There's proper tech specs that have to go into incorporation of whatever they're building, whatever artwork, furniture, whatever it might be, into a Unreal Engine 5. In order for that to happen, it's going to need to be a application process where we're kind of filtering out people that are building on other platforms that cannot directly translate. And then number two, also just kind of being a little bit selective on what gets brought in, because we also want it to succeed, and that will kind of help with that flourish that launch pod as well.
So how much of this ARIA build out is sort of dependent on the avatar profile picture build out, right? Like, because you've got the profile, are you going to be able to launch all of these functions where I can go around and see all this stuff in like a first person, and then phase two do the profile, like you said, you have to represent people within the space, right? Are these going at the same time development wise, or is this a multi-phase rollout of what
so it's going to be the version 1 of Enviro is just going to be a single player, and then as version 2 or 3 is rolled out, we're not talking years, we're talking this stuff we're already working on it. And ARIA, we only finally decided to talk about it because we have enough of it in production. Future versions of Enviro will have the ability to then take that dynamic space, convert it to a static room that enables the features of ARIA. When you enable ARIA, you have to have the avatar program already completed.
So from your perspective, I don't know if you were privy to this sort of this decision, because it was a tiered sort of feature list pretty heavily at first, and then all of a sudden there was an announcement, hey, no, everybody gets everything on the first 3 from a retail standpoint on the initial deliverables. You said it was when we first minted them, it was like a tier 1 wouldn't have certain features for high ray video feature, and then all of a sudden we got this announcement that, hey, you can have video in the tier 1s, you can do it all. What made that shift? Was that the shift to say, hey, listen, we've got more here than just a gallery sort of metaverse product that we can build this out, or was that a pre-planned thing to get hype? What was the thought behind that sort of?
So the components that we said that would be only in tier 2 or tier 3. So for example, you can't get music in tier 1. You can't have MP4, GIF or GIF format, whatever. Don't want to alienate anybody. In tier 3, those components are actually still there. The streaming aspect, which is not part of the NFTs that you can bring in, those went in for everybody. What I think what you're alluding to is, all the tiers got a lot more than what was initially.
Yeah, sorry, the specifics of which I might have messed up. Yeah.
That was more because we had so much more that we could offer. Now we're like, well, why are we restricting this? Why don't we just shift everything down. Now the tier ones got bigger, the tier twos, everybody got a bigger size. The amount of NFTs that they could hold got bigger because we have so much more that we can offer that it just didn't make sense to restrict it. Because now a tier one is actually for a single person that's relatively new into NFTs, wants to dip their toes into the metaverse, 10 NFTs to put up in a room that's your own and have a metaverse party with a small group of people. A tier one's actually pretty good. A tier three is probably ideal if you want to have some sort of MP4 on the walls. Now we're finally able to say, yeah, these lower options might be pretty good for the average user. We have a couple things in the pipeline for AIrIA, maybe not the first version of AIrIA, but the next version of AIrIA, where I'm just going to allude to it, but I can't give you the details on it here. But there'll be other reasons why people may upgrade. But we just have all this other stuff that we're like, well, let's take what we had before and at least just give it to everybody.
So one of the reasons when that happened, we saw just sort of shift from there is best timing of this is Unreal Engine 5, right? Like that mind-blowing graphics, so you guys get to come along and take advantage of that, be one of the first projects. I don't think this whole space explodes the same if we're sitting here using Unreal Engine 4 and everybody's already seen those graphics, right? I think the fact that you get to do these releases and we get to see it and go, wow, this is crazy, this is so realistic, and there's no GTA out there of the same quality. But I also, one of the first things I saw to really illustrate that was TradingView put out, which is something we use heavily in the stream, put out a preview demo of their space, and they're a big player. So did they approach you? How are I imagine with my question is, it was so impressive. Have you found brands now coming to you adverse to you going to them to say, what do you guys got going on over here?
So with TradingView specifically, it was kind of just a mutual connection. We had kind of put piece of their product, at least on the crypto side, out in one of our things because we have an account. That kind of started the conversation. We've been talking with them ever since. And then as far as B2B or having other businesses come to us, I think we're starting to see that turn now, where we're starting to see, more businesses kind of realize, what's going on here. I think if we take a step back and just kind of look at the, from a 50,000 foot view here, I think businesses are just now starting to medium to bigger size businesses are just now starting to realize what the metaverse is or Web3. Yep. I think this is all kind of, we're still kind of at the beginning of it. There are a lot of sectors that have no interest in any of this. And so trying to get some of that into the metaverse is a little bit tougher. So for example, for us, it's like for furniture companies, if we want to have furniture companies are going to represent it into a high resolution space, we obviously have a very good solution for them. There's only what we're seeing now is a lot more companies are kind of making that turn, but we're still pretty early in it. And so that's kind of been the overall hurdle that we're expecting. Yeah. Industries start to make that turn into metaverse. I mean, we have solutions for them.
When can we? So when you guys in your mind expect that the need for the utilization of combining? And we can see the combination of the enviros and doing that leveling up. Is that something you see happening before the reveal of people getting access? And because I know we have the demos and stuff, but is that something you see fitting in? Like, hey guys, you can do this and then you'll have access, or is it have access, see what you've got, then if you want to have access to the high levels, how do you see that rollout happening?
So upgrades will probably happen first and then access. I can talk about it now. So one thing we had kind of kept a lid on for a long time was this MWS. Let me backtrack a little bit and I'll get to, you'll see what I mean. I'll get to that answer. So one of the issues and one of the the FUD that we hear all the time is that, well, I need a gaming engine and I can't run, Enviro on anything that I own, it was a legitimate concern. Unreal Engine 5 with the 8K graphic output that we're talking about, it requires, if you think about it, you need a gaming PC, a PlayStation, or like an Xbox or something like that. And so that's kind of what Unreal Engine's used to running on. And so now we're talking about bringing it to everybody. A lot of the cloud rendering solutions, the issue that we had was they're not going to provide enough power to render an Enviro for let alone 1,000 users or 10,000 users at the same time. What we have come up with is a vertical that will actually help solve some of those issues. So Moduluc Web Services will have both computing nodes on our side, but also a decentralized component where someone, instead of mining, can now rent their GPU out for for PRMS, which is our SPL token. But then they can create a decentralized metaverse rendering, solution. We kind of made that component. We wanted to make sure that was working. We were working and we're developing just the front end of it at this point. The demo we're talking about is going to be a reveal of, the technical features, almost the final version of what will be released in the actual Enviro. When people can go into it. After that, we will have the playable demos, and that will be utilizing MWS. So we'll probably have all these back to back. So people can utilize MWS, log in from whatever, and hop into the demo that they just saw, put up their NFTs, things like that. And so people will actually be able to go in and take a look at the space and see how it feels to create the space. And it's actually pretty simple. You can make a space really quickly, but take photos, take videos, all that stuff. So people will have an idea of what they're getting, and then we'll probably release the update mechanism, the smart contract, whatever you want to call it, beforehand, and then the actual release of the product. That's the general timeline.
Like I said, you touched on that with the TradingView thing too. There's so many use cases here that I think Enviro could be quick to jump on, in the sense that you hear, right, the TradingView, they're a licensed product. I use it, right, and people come to my streams to watch it because it has things that they want to use.
Yeah.
In a world where you can't control what people do with your licenses and stuff, and you have a platform that limits how many people are allowed to come in a tiered space to view a live stream or something. You have the ability to demo a limited number off of giving one person's license key, and you can trust that person because they're linked to their Enviro, can demonstrate it to however many people, 5, 10, however many people is limited. Those sort of use case applications to this, I think, are things that in the B2B application are unexpected, right? That you're going to see people realize, like, oh, I didn't think we could use it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you know your customer, right? And that's like a huge roadblock right now for a lot of industries. And so providing something like this, and especially with the smart contracts on top of that, we talk about it on the website and a couple of informal AMAs, but with AIrIA, talking about ticketing and knowing your attendees and things like that, you can really know who you're letting in up front. And for a lot of businesses, that eases a lot of concerns.
Yeah, and well, that's already a thing that needs to go virtual, right? As in, we saw that it kind of came to a halt with the COVID and fungus lockdowns, that a lot of businesses had to, we don't know how to go forward now. And so now there's now people saying, well, when this happens again, which we all think will happen again, that it's gonna need people to be ready to go this time. And so, like you say, people are exploring so many options, and it's fascinating to hear how this space could just evolve with these tiers and people rolling in different features and stuff. It seems like to me, you guys, if I had to summarize my opinion of it, are building out the infrastructure to scale and onboard.
That was really something that we wanted to make sure we did right from the beginning. So, I mean, we had a team of like five of us that sat down and really thought about this, about each tier, the number of each, the upgrade mechanism, how there isn't a burn. And there was a reason for that, and we can get into that later if you want. But a lot of even the tokenomics and things like that, a lot of this has been very carefully thought out so that we could have the B2B solutions that we have later on.
For sure. And that honestly, the burn thing, that's a good segue, because I was going to say, what is unique about Enviro is most collections are active to like, hey, stake, right? If you want your Prism token or whatever, you got to stake it, because we don't want it on the marketplace. We want a lower supply. That's the incentive there. Where you guys were like, nah, just hold them. Just you just have to have them. There was no physical, and so that was it was a welcome surprise, because I'm lazy and I forget to do these things. But yeah, so what is with that and like you say, just with the lack of burning, what was the thought process behind both of those decisions?
So the lack of burning, the first thought of that was Enviro is going to have so many, so much value and so many like utilities in it that we don't need to create scarcity as a marker of value. When we wanted to create, so for example, if we burned, let's say we take all the tier ones, and as they're upgrading tier 2, if we burned a certain amount of them, the tier ones, it'd be harder for those tier ones to first of all, to buy those tier ones, to get to a tier 10. As it stands, a tier 10 is 512 tier ones. Yeah. If you make the tier ones too scarce, no one's gonna be able to get to a tier 10. And when we talk about tier 10s, we're talking about like really heavily customized solutions for businesses. At that point, we want businesses to be able to get to a tier 10 because we can offer them a lot more, because there's not as many of them. And as we roll things out, as we have newer features, a tier 10 may be able to get a feature first because there's not that many of them. We can roll it out to those businesses initially. There's two parts of this. One, we had to make sure that we had the ability to have enough product to get to the higher tiers. And then number two, how do we create a product that doesn't need a ton of rounds of VC funding to get to the end product that we want to do? And one of those ways that we can do that is by having a structure like this that will have a revenue stream built in that we can continue to develop and not have to stop and worry about that. Yeah, there's two components there.
Yeah, there's two components, and you just touched on it, right? The revenue streams. That's one of the things, right? Is we look at these projects, and the majority of them are, tokenomically pyramids, right? That's what they are. Like you can scale, you can zoom out, and it just gets a bigger pyramid, and they're serving, inside the thing. But one of the things that Enviro that has me long hold and bullish on it, and able to invite you here without feeling like I'm going to jump all over and be like, this is a piece of shit, is the fact that there is many applications for revenue generation out of it, right? Your collection is essentially, every collection starts off as a pyramid, collects money. Let's see what we can do with it, right? And then you come up with ideas. Whereas Enviro has collected the money and now is saying, listen, we have this that makes money, this makes money, we're going to develop this that'll make money, and outside of the community. And that's the key part of it, right? Because you're onboarding other businesses and other people through it. And with the partnerships. And that is such a key component of this, because even if it is small, that external value is what makes you not a Ponzi, right? So at core, that is needed. And that is, to me, the kernel of what is Enviro value, right? Is the fact that this can be scaled to be a B2B or a value generating platform, or metaverse. Whether it be through the ways we talked about where, designers coming in or furniture, there's an absolute million ways you can pitch the metaverse to companies per their niche. Right. And that, to me, that's what gets me pumped.
That was really a big component of this. When we were first thinking of how are we going to make sure that we have enough revenue streams in place that we can complete the production or the development of this product without going bankrupt, right? And so the one thing that we kind of had, one scenario that we had to play out was, what if everyone bought Enviros and nobody sold anything? We had no secondary sales. Would we still have enough funding to complete this development through completion? And so one of the ways that you sidestep that issue is you don't rely on secondary sales as revenue. You look at other things. So now, you have the ability to have AIrIA, and you can advertise within that, within that space. You have businesses coming in and businesses that can have advertisements. There's just a lot of options that are there. Having these things in place in parallel, and then the renting, and then the MWS system, having a SPL token that is beyond just a financial tool. It actually has a ton of utility within the ecosystem. There's a lot of these things that we kind of put into place to make sure that even if there was zero secondary sales, we would still be okay. And I hope that has translated to the people that hold these products, but that needs to be something that happens more frequently, honestly, in crypto and NFTs in general.
Like an actual businessman? You're crazy. This, like I said, that's what we do 90% of the day, is just looking around, just shoveling through shit, trying to find something that's, is that actual value in there? but like I said, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't want to hold you too much of your time. You've absolutely been a savage explaining all the different things you've got going on over there. We'll have to get you back on when we've got another announcement or something, something to discuss. Absolutely. I'm a long-term hodler, so I'm going to be holding, I'm tracking the community's been holding, big fan. So I look forward to see what you guys have got going on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me here. And definitely, once we have these announcements, or not the announcements, the demos and the playable demos and stuff like that, would love to have, love to be back and kind of explain some stuff, and also kind of just talk about what's next.
For real. I appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot, Jay. You're absolutely savage.